the degradation of their asset.
Yeah, the degradation of their ass. That doesn't sound very appealing.
That took some brain power to pull that word out.
To watch it degrade.
To watch it die.
Or
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
So
here's a little movie.
Yeah, they could over the course of a month. They could either way. It could be degradation or whatever the opposite word's degradation is, which I don't know.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, Alex?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All good. I'm here in my puffer jacket. Although my office is actually quite warm because I've had the heating on this morning.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's
nice.
It's not too. It's cold outside, but it's fairly toasty in here. So last week we had our very first guest.
We did.
Which was
How was that?
It was good fun.
Yeah,
it was really good fun. Yeah, he was. It was great. Jim. I mean, Jim's a friend of mine anyway. But he had a lot to say. Talked a lot about the current state of affairs in the drone industry. How Red Air came to be. A bit about Gav's Emmy, which I didn't even know he had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all good fun. All good fun. Nice. We were supposed to have a guest on this week, but he's had to postpone. Which is fine. So it's back to me and you again.
Yes, back to the original two.
Yes, back to the original team.
Yeah.
So this week we are talking about drone roof inspections. 10 things you must know.
Ooh, must know.
Must.
Good to know.
Must
know.
To know. Must know.
Must know.
Must know about these 10 things.
Yeah.
Drone roof inspections.
All right. Let's start then. What's first thing to know?
I suppose, I mean, as with every drone or aerial mission, it's the end goal. What are you setting out to achieve?
Yeah, that's true.
What are you setting out to achieve, Varun?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the roof.
Oh, let's see. Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you want to inspect for? What are you looking for basically with this roof inspection?
Yeah.
Has the client or the stakeholder given you some specifics to look at, or have they just said, get that drone up there, have a look on the roof, see what you can find?
Yeah.
Are you a surveyor? Are you not a surveyor? It's
exactly.
Open-ended question.
It is very open-ended, and I think the challenge that I see a lot of times, especially with even with customers that give us a call and kind of want to learn more about hammer missions, is that sometimes they've already kind of made up a solution on what they want to put forward to their customers. So they would basically think, well, it's a roof, I'll go take some pictures of it, and that's going to be it, and I'll just forward that on to the client, and that's, whilst that is okay, it's extremely disconnected from what customers are looking for. At the end of the day, the customer's not paying for drone pictures or for the drone at all.
No.
They're paying for some problem to get solved, for which they're trying to capture some data to diagnose that problem. Whether it's a problem or if it's something else they want to do, that's all. You have to kind of like figure that out by speaking to the end customer.
They're paying for part of a solution.
Exactly.
Aren't they?
Yeah. They're looking for a solution, and you're an input into the solution. So, I mean, with roofs, inspection is obviously like the most kind of common use case you can think of. Like, if you're looking for cracks or defects or missing tiles or
water ingress.
Water ingress is, you've got, sort of hot water leaking from places and whatnot. But then there's also other things, like someone might want to understand how big a roof is, or how what are the dimensions of a roof, because maybe they want to put solar panels on it.
Yep.
Completely different use case, but still roof related. And if you gave them pictures of just the roof being inspected, I mean, that's not good to them.
No, they need to know dimensions, etc.
Yeah.
Which I suppose gives you small roof versus large roof, I guess.
Yeah. So is it a small roof? Is it a large roof? And each roof has its own particular challenges. Actually, small roof and large roof is one way of classifying, but is it a pitched roof? Is it a flat roof?
Yeah.
Is it a roof with lots of different, I don't know, chimneys and structures on top of it, and obstructions and gull nets and
Is it a church spire? Because
is it a
that can
church
be
spire?
because that can be a roof. It's they're often tiled and need inspecting. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of roofs out there.
Yeah.
I guess how would you capture those roofs? What are the different methods of roof capture? It all depends on what sort of roof you've got, as we've said.
Yeah.
Flat, spire, whatever.
Yeah.
How would you capture it?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, each one's got its own geometry, its own special properties. And we don't think about it consciously, but yeah, the real world is really complex. So yeah, I guess if it's a small roof, you can think about capturing it sort of manually by just taking the drone up
Yep.
and then taking the images, because that's probably the most efficient way. If it's somewhat a large and flat roof, maybe automation, something like a warehouse roof.
Yeah, warehouse roof. I was about to say that.
Yeah, it's the first one that comes to mind, isn't it?
Warehouse, indeed. Yeah, I mean they're always rather large.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where you probably want to have automation to make the inspection or survey faster, but
Yep.
also just to get consistent data, right? Like you don't want to have 500 images that are completely just all over the place. Yeah, and it all sort of boils down to getting high quality data when it comes to some of those roofs. Do you remember any of your roof missions, Alex?
Oh yeah, I've done many a roof mission. Outside of Hammer, so working as a freelancer. I mean, I've done roofs in London. Some have been, the one I remember was I won't say for which company it was for, but it was a large flat roof in the East End of London. And I actually, although I could have automated it, and it would have made a lot more sense to automate it because it was a big roof, I captured it manually. But I was actually stood on the roof. I had roof access, so I could stand up there and physically see the aircraft moving across the roof. I have photographed roofs in Richmond, which is actually not too far away from us at the office. And that was manual, but it was more awkward because obviously I couldn't be on the roof, so I had to capture that manually, and I had to make sure I had the drone in view at all times, but
line of sight,
exactly. But at the same time, make sure I was capturing the quality of data that the surveyor wanted. But then we can go back to things like the mill. The mill gets a mention. She hasn't been mentioned for a couple of weeks. And we've done a roof capture on that, and that was automated. And the difference between say my one in the East End of London, which took a while because I was manually doing it, compared with the mill, which is again a big roof. That was done automated. The time difference was ludicrous. It was probably 5 times quicker to do the mill automated than it would be to manually do it.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's the time difference and also the data quality, the consistency with which it's the same thing, something factory produced versus hand produced. Even though hand produced stuff have their novelty, but when you have something factory produced, you just kind of know it's going to be
I guess when people are looking for certain aspects of the roof, I think a couple of years ago I did some Velux windows that were in a really awkward position on the person's house. They couldn't really see them from the ground. And that wasn't a whole roof. I just did the Velux windows. But it gave my client enough detail to be able to see where the imperfections were around the Velux. They were going to get them swapped out for some new ones. But I think the window company wanted to know how bad the old ones were. So I just got up there and shot them.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It depends what sort of data you're after, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And that's the thing, like, there are so many site challenges that are ignored, or even just the fact there are so many different types of roofs. I mean, just remember like one of the early test missions, I think it was in Brighton, it was some supermarket, and they had gull nets all over the roof, because it's Brighton, of course.
Yeah.
And so that meant that you couldn't really easily get on top of the roof to capture the data from there. There was only probably like a small sort of 1 meter by 1 meter square on which you could stand and sort of like fly the mission from.
Which you don't want to do.
Which you don't want to do. What if you want to move to be able to, I don't know, take control of the drone or whatever? And also like just from a data quality point of view, you've got all the nets then just, you know, become a part of your data set. And so you've got all these site challenges to take into account. Especially if you're doing a visual survey compared to, you know, something like a thermal one. Which is also an interesting question. Like, you know, so depending on the use case, you've got, again, the camera that you would use to be able to serve that use case. So, I mean, when do you think a visual versus thermal camera could be useful from a roof inspection perspective?
Visual, you're looking for cracks and defects, missing tiles, missing bricks, maybe the pot's fallen off the top of your chimney and you can't see it from the ground. That's visual. Thermal or multispectral, whichever way you want to do it, you'd be looking for like things like water ingress, heat loss, damp, I would assume, most probably as well, because that'll get picked up. So there's different, you know, there's different methods of roof survey, depending on what you want to do with it.
Yeah. And sometimes you need to do both visual and thermal, right? Because maybe the visual provides you context for this is what it looks like in real life. And this is what the actual issue is, because this heat signature here is completely off. And maybe it's a damp issue. Maybe it's a water ingress. Maybe it's actually what it is probably a harder problem to classify sometimes.
Yes.
But you know there is an issue.
Well, you've got the DJI Mavic 2 Dual, I believe, that does both JPEG and thermal imagery.
Yeah.
So you get both shots in one hit. You don't have to go up twice.
Yeah.
Good old DJI.
Yeah, they're trying to streamline the process.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, going back to my gull example, like sometimes seagulls would appear in the data set as heat signatures.
Don't talk to me about seagulls.
So if you don't have visual context, you'll say, "Oh, that's a heating issue on that roof." No, it's just a gull sitting there.
It's just a gull. Gulls are generally a nightmare. Doing anything on the coast, actually, even as far as up as where I live, that you do get gulls around here. I know some of the cell towers around here, the gulls live on the cell towers.
Yeah.
Like kind of hermits of the sky. Book title of the week, folks. Hermits of the Sky. That's actually not a bad one. But I mean, it's, you know, flying on the coast, gulls, roofs, generally a nightmare.
Yeah, I fully agree, and it's so all the site challenges you have to take into account when you get there. So it's not just about, you know, go take some pretty pictures. It's high quality data, and you don't want anomalies like, you know, just birds sitting there in your thermal data set.
or trying to take your aircraft out of the sky.
or that. Yeah.
Which they do try to do on more than a couple of occasions in my case.
Yeah, double team to destroy your data quality.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The other issue that happens with data quality sometimes with roof inspections is that your images are not in focus.
Yep.
And a lot of the times I think I thought about why this happens a lot is because a lot of times the camera is focused not on the roof, but on the ground before the inspection or the service begins. And then, you know, it's focused at a larger distance to where it needs to be. And then, you know, the entire mission carries on like that. And you just end up with a lot of photos that are out of focus. So, I mean, what are the strategies to mitigate against that? How do we prevent it?
Well, I mean, Hammer, because that's who we work for, right?
Right.
That's what we do. So Hammer will auto-focus your camera when you're up there. You know, before it starts the mission, it brings everything into focus. But if you're doing it manually, you've got that option of manual focus.
Yeah.
You know, screen tap to focus. It's, as you said, it's very important, because the last thing you want to do is get your rig down, get all your pictures off your card, send them to your client, and your client goes, "Well, out of focus."
Yeah.
Go and do it again. I'm not going to pay you the second time, but you go and do it again, or I won't pay you at all until it's done properly. You know, it's having that foresight and the skill to go, or the knowledge, to go, all of my images needs to be focused. Therefore, I need to concentrate and make sure they are all in focus when I'm up there, whether it's your software platform that auto focuses your camera for you, or you manually focus the camera yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Yeah. And sometimes, understanding motion blur and taking pictures whilst you're flying, and maybe stopping and taking the capture as opposed to
stop and capture, which you would do manually anyway. If you were flying manual, you would stop and capture.
Yeah.
So you can, it's a tedious task because I've done it many times. But with stop and capture, you're able to focus. Same with software. If you set your software to stop and capture, it will stop, focus, capture.
Yeah.
As opposed to if it's moving, you've always got the risk of it, taking shots out unsequentially, and those shots being out of focus because the camera, because the drone is flying too quickly. Yeah.
And that was the original premise behind our kind of, the way we do missions in Hammer Missions, in terms of the capture app. You've got different modules that represent different types of missions. And whilst most software do like this grid pattern where you just fly back and forth, you don't care what you're doing. I think we're trying to get to the point where the software is clever enough to understand, well, this is a roof inspection, and you need to stop and capture sometimes to get high quality data, and that's just built in. And it's, I think, as we do more and more different types of roofs, it might be the case that you need to have different types of missions that capture different types of roofs and different types of shapes and profiles and cameras and whatnot. So it's going to be really interesting. I think roofs in itself is just going to be like an industry of missions, different missions.
Yeah. And I know there are a lot of people out there that just do roof surveys.
Yeah.
That's all they do. It's their bread and butter money, roof surveys all day long. And why not?
Yeah.
If it pays the bills, why not? I mean, you've got ground offset as well to take into consideration.
Yeah.
We do have a separate video on ground offset, which maybe we will link here or here somewhere.
Yeah.
So everyone can see, or in the, we can link it in the description as well.
Yeah.
So everyone can see what ground offset is. I mean,
do you want to describe it anyway?
Yeah, really, what ground offset is how to describe this in layman terms. So if you're let's think. So if you're photographing a roof and the building is 40 foot high, you would set your ground offset to 40 feet. Because what that enables you to do, as it says in the title, it offsets the ground, and therefore the camera knows what it's supposed to be looking at.
Yeah. And that helps with the overlap calculations, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah. Because
as
by
it
default,
says here, if the goal is mapping, then overlap is important. If overlap is important, then ground is important. I don't know who wrote that.
No idea. We'll have to find out who this person is.
You wrote that, and it makes a lot of sense. To be fair, it really does.
Yeah.
We do have a separate video on that altogether, but you'll see from the Hammer app, and obviously the hub as well, that you can set a ground offset.
Yeah.
It's highly recommended. If you're shooting a building and the building's 40 foot high, set your ground offset to 40 feet.
Yeah.
I don't even have to explain why. Just you'll see it when you do it.
Yeah, you'll get the right overlap basically.
Yeah,
between,
exactly.
So,
exactly.
So we'll link to that video so people can dig into
it.
Yeah,
we'll chuck it here somewhere.
Yeah.
Or in the the comments.
Yeah. And the other issue
is shaped roofs.
Yeah. L-shaped roofs, right?
Yeah, L-shaped roof, as we know from obviously the mill is L-shaped.
Yes, it is.
We've used that as an example many times. Obviously, flight planning for obscure shaped roofs can be awkward because you don't want to overfly the area that you're not photographing.
Yeah,
because going back to ground offset, it can mess with your ground offset. So if you've got an L-shaped building and you basically draw a box around it and fly the whole box with the L shape in it,
Yeah.
It's going to measure the offset in the space that isn't the building.
Yeah.
Which will cause problems.
Mm-hmm.
So planning wise, you
Mm-hmm.
know, we have devised a method of capturing strange shaped buildings,
Yeah.
which will only fly the footprint of the building.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also when the polygon is L-shaped, and if you draw a polygon that is, I don't know if it's called concave or non-con or convex. Always mess those two up. But
So
basically,
do I.
like,
I'm not even going
yeah.
to go there.
So basically, if you draw a polygon that is directly over the L shape, I think with most flight planning, what happens is that you end up with these extra lines going from one part of the L to the other part, but not going over the building. And so
Yep.
kind of going across it and going into an area that you don't want to capture. So that wastes a lot of precious battery time, captures a lot of images you don't need. So
Yep.
it just increases your payload that you need to extract later on. So I think a lot of it is just just again, the software should handle these things, so you're worrying more about the data quality than the
And
right shapes.
obviously, if you wanted to create a 3D image from that, I know we're moving slightly onto 3D, which can help with inspections. Capturing an L-shaped roof or any roof, really,
Yeah.
you want to get as much, not too much, but you need a little bit of overlap over the side of the roof.
Yeah.
So you can capture the facades
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
When combining it with oblique shots.
100%. Yeah. So getting the oblique shots for all the facades, as you mentioned, they're also called, I think, sometimes just the gutters and kind of just the edges of the building. And also if there's any structures on the building, so if you have a chimney or if you've got anything that is sticking out and has some level of a height to it, you won't be able to see it in your Nadir data set. You need to sort of have the oblique shots to be able to see it, and also for any 3D mapping solution, whether it's hammer missions or anything else, to be able to recreate it in 3D for you to be able to manipulate it. So oblique is also really important. And we're actually about to introduce a new mode in our flight planning where you just have something called a buildings mode. And so you toggle that on, and then it's going to automatically add obliques to whatever mission you've planned. And that's
something we've been experimenting with for a while.
Yeah.
Actually it's going to go into production, which is really good. Good for our customers as well.
Yeah. Saves a lot of time and gets you high quality data. So
exactly.
So oblique shots are really important. The other one is drone orientation. So especially if the goal is inspection. One of the things that happens is that you go and do the roof and you take all these images, but if they're all oriented in the travel direction of the drone, so you can imagine the drone flying forward one flight line and then flying back with the second flight line. The challenge is in the post, when you're looking through these images, you have to constantly remember that, oh, it's now changed orientation.
Yes.
We're so used to actually looking at Google Maps or some form of a map where everything is the same orientation all the time. And it's very hard for us to just, oh, okay, it's different orientation now.
Oh, it's it's obviously the drone's turn around, so it's going back the other way, which, almost makes you want to rotate the picture.
Yeah.
Whereas, you shouldn't really have to.
Yeah.
So orientation is a key factor.
Yeah. I agree. So I think keeping those in the same orientation can be really helpful. And again, I think you can have software that allows you to orient it in the same way with every single image. And lastly, I think the important thing to also think about is the post-processing options. I guess, you start with the customer use case, and then you understand what is the post-processing you will be needing.
Yeah.
And then from that, you figure out your flight plan, right? So it's sort of a reverse engineering kind of.
So it all depends, what their end goal is, what they want from you going out and doing your shoot. It'd be the same if they were using a cherry picker or scaffolding. There is an end goal, and it's what they want from you, what end product they want from you.
Yeah.
Whether that be a 3D model or an ortho, or just some images of, I've got some cracks around my chimney. Can you go and have a look at them for me?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, that's what the client requires or or stakeholder requires.
Yeah. And you got to think about their end-to-end experience, right? Like, what is it that you're going to deliver to them, and what is it that they're going to experience from you without knowing all the work that's gone into like actually capturing data, and because they're not going to see all the site challenges, all the pigeons on the roof or whatever. Like, they're not going to see any of that. They're just going to see the data at the end.
So. It's like when you get the builders in, right, and they're building you, I don't know, a new room on the back of your house. You don't sit there all day, every day going, where's that brick going? What you're doing with that? Where's that bit of wood going? You just let people get on with it, don't you? And that's as a drone op, you just want to go out, do your job, do what your client requests of you, and then hand them the end result.
Yeah.
Same with any trade, really.
Yeah. Exactly.
So they don't need to know the ins and outs and why that works and why that doesn't. You're there to do a job.
Exactly. That makes sense. And I think being able to be able to understand the right processing method for the client based on what they want, whether it's inspection or mapping or 3D modeling or something else, I think it's really, really key, because you can then advise those deliverables and outputs to the customer or stakeholder, and they understand.
Or even if you are doing just a roof inspection, you can upsell yourself. And you can say, I can do your roof inspection, but I could also 3D map your entire property.
Yeah.
With not many more phases on top of the roof inspection.
Yeah.
It'd only take me another 20 minutes or half an hour or however long it'd be, depending on what size of the building.
Yeah.
You can use that to upsell.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's how most drone services, or whether it's an in-house drone team, scale, because you sort of start with one killer use case that, your end stakeholder needs or wants.
Yeah.
And then you realize that actually, the hardware is just a platform to enable a lot of different use cases, and you can deliver them through the same platform.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to upgrade, but most of the times you can use the same one. And that just allows you to monetize that hardware so much better.
Yeah, totally. So, and then, of course, you've got the future of that roof. So, potentially you could go back every month or every couple of weeks and do the same shoot over and over and over again. And that gives your client or stakeholders the ability to be able to see the degradation of their asset.
The degradation of their asset. That doesn't sound very appealing.
That took some brain power to pull that word out.
To watch it degrade.
To watch it die. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, so here's a little movie.
They could over the course of a month. They could either way. It could be degradation or whatever the opposite word degradation is. Which I don't know. But or as they're getting it fixed, they can you can see the process of getting it fixed. The same that you do with a build site.
Yeah.
You go and do a shoot once a month and watch the build site grow.
Yeah.
Degradation was probably a bad word.
Or growth, or improvements, or updates.
Improvement, or growth, or updates. Let's not use the word degrade. Watch their roof degrade.
Here's some data. The roof is 50% in trouble, and 70% in trouble. Oh, the roof is no longer
yes, the roof doesn't exist anymore. Would you like my suggestions to do something about it?
You've been capturing the mill too much, Alex. Just like
you're
seeing the degradation of the mill.
I am. It's really sad that place is on its last legs, bless it. So I hope something is done about it.
On its last tiles.
On its last tiles. Yeah, it really is. And it's under the water table as well. So I don't know whether they're going to do some work on it or whether they'll sell it and then build houses on it. They have to keep the mill though, because it's grade 2 listed, I think.
Right.
So they can pull it down, but they have to build it back exactly as it previously was.
Right.
But whether they put apartments in it or not, I don't know. But be a really nice site. Site.
It will, yeah. And we'll be there to capture it, won't we? Say.
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
Yes, without them knowing. Fly over.
Now they know.
now they'll know. Yeah. Shh, don't say anything. So there you go.
Yeah.
I suppose it was short and sweet. I think we've done a little stint on roof inspections.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
roof inspections, surveys, whatever you want to call it. But basically, if you're using drones for roofs, you got to keep quite a few things into mind, and
Yeah.
probably 100 other things we haven't mentioned in this pod. But hopefully, we'll
there'll
mention it.
be loads.
Yeah.
If anyone has any further suggestions of things we've forgotten, please feel free to add them below.
Exactly.
We will take them into consideration.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Cool.
And should we say a little bit about next week? Who's going to be on next week, or maybe we should confirm first? Yeah,
I think we'll confirm first, but we do have two more guests lined up.
Yeah.
Both from very different sort of ends of the drone spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it should be really interesting.
It will be
really interesting. And as I said, I mean, we had Jim on last week, and that was really interesting. He's been flying as long as I have, and figures out we've got pretty much this very, very close UAS numbers.
Yeah.
So we did our testing around the same time. So yeah, it's all good.
Brilliant. Awesome.
There you go. Do you want to do the outro?
Well, not much to say really. Like, if people found this interesting, then they should give us a like, maybe subscribe to our channel, share it with other people that might find it interesting. And if you've got any questions on roof inspections using drones, or any comments, you can leave them in the section below, or reach out to us at team@hammermissions.com.
And the other thing I am going to do with this one is I'm actually going to put a link to our podcast as well. I don't think we do that, do we? Don't link our podcast in YouTube.
Oh yeah, we don't actually. We should do that.
So let's link our podcast in YouTube, just in case people don't have time to watch the video.
Yeah.
But if they're on the way to work, in the car, in the train, they can have a listen to our dulcet tones.
Yeah.
Talk about all things drone.
Brilliant.
There you go. Nice one, Varun.
Thanks, Alex.
Cool. I will catch up with you later on.
Catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.